Okay, our next speaker, Bob, where are you? Here he comes. I'm going to let him do his introduction and tell you who he works for. His name is Bob Dickey, I know that part. What I like about Bob is he is not a college professor. And a lot of the stuff you hear on global warming and cap and trade and all that comes from college professors that don't live in the real world. Well, this guy knows the facts in the real world, and so we will let him take it away. Bob Dickey.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Dickey, and I am not a professor, as Diane was saying. I am a marketing manager for an electric cooperative called the Eastern Illini Electric Cooperative. It's just about 45 miles straight east of here. In this area, the cooperative in the rural area would be called Corn Belt Energy. So we're, in a sense, we're in the same situation when it comes to knowing what energy's doing. And I will tell you this: it's going up. Cost of energy is going to continue to go up. It's going to escalate dramatically. If I was going to title this little presentation, I'd call it Cap and Trade, Climate Change, and Your Energy Bill. We do have an energy crisis. And this crisis is that we're using more and more energy, and we're finding less and less of it. And the oil crisis is going to be getting very serious. We're finding oil in different places, but it's not going to be able to keep up with everything that we're doing when it comes to consuming of our energy throughout the world. In fact, the Energy Information Society said that the association said that we're going to be needing 40% more energy by 2030 than we're presently using now. And we're not going to be able to find enough energy, especially when it comes to oil. How many here get National Geographic? Anybody get National Geographic besides me? Wow. 2 tea parties, and there was one other guy and me. Okay, well, National Geographic back in August of 2005, did I see somebody wave their hand and say they actually get it? Good, too. Okay, great. Do you read it? Good, because I used to just look at the pictures. Now I'm reading the articles, and there's some good articles in there, because back in August of 2005, there was a big picture of an old rusty gas pump that says, after oil. And the whole 27 pages was talking about the fact that we're running out of oil. In fact, what it talked about was that of the 5 major oil fields throughout the world, 3 are in major decline, 1 is holding steady, and 1 is slightly increasing, while the demand for energy is going up. The United States alone uses 1/4 of the energy when it comes to oil, and we use about 21 million barrels per day. And we're getting 2/3 of that from overseas. So we need oil, but there's a couple other countries behind us that's going to be needing a lot more than we do, and we'll talk about that in a moment. The biggest thing we've got going for us is coal. Coal, as far as the world's concerned, is approximately 60% of all energy. The use of coal is about 60% of all energy throughout the world. In the United States, 50% of our electricity is generated by coal. So we have plenty of it. In fact, Illinois alone, at the present rate of consumption for coal, will be able to supply the United States for the next 100 years any bituminous coal that is needed to generate energy, electricity, gas, whatever it may be. Illinois has enough coal to last this United States at the present rate of consumption for the next 100 years. Illinois is the Saudi Arabia of coal. And we've got plenty of it, the world's got plenty of it, but unfortunately what we're seeing happen now is we're seeing how should I say, an effort to actually diminish, if not eliminate, the use of coal. Now, one of the reasons we've been given is that coal plants are dirty. I remember a few years ago looking at some ads that was coming out of Texas where they didn't want any coal plants built, and they were talking about how dirty the coal was, and they were actually showing miners going down there and having really getting dirty. Now, just like farmers do when they harvest or when they plant. But they're using coal as a dirty energy. And as a result of that, there was coal mines that were no longer being able to be built that we needed to power energy. The coal mines of the 70s are not, I repeat, are not the coal mines being built today. We're looking at 96% less carbon, or not carbon dioxide, but less nitrogen oxide, and we're looking at 92% less sulfur dioxide. Now, once we were able to control that, because remember we heard about acid rain and how bad that would be, we were able to control it. So all of a sudden, the environmentalists didn't have anything they could work on anymore when it comes to trying to keep us from using coal. Because the environmentalist effort is to stop all use of fossil fuels. That's their goal. Whether it be coal, whether it be oil, whether it be natural gas, or whether it be propane, they do not want us to use it. And they would be very happy if everything was wind and solar. Well, the same Energy Information we have from our government group, what they're telling us is that we will need, not only will we need 40% more energy, that by 2030, no matter how much more we look at renewable energy, it will still only be about 6% of our total need when it comes to energy. 6%. Fossil fuels will go from 84% down to 78%. We need it. We can't do without it. And to say we're going to is pie in the sky and not real, and very harmful to what we're trying to do. Well, let's talk about renewables. When we look at renewables, we're looking basically at solar and wind. Hydro is not as much as we used to have, but we can see wave energy out in the oceans, and we could possibly see some other forms of energy using our oceans as far as our wind. But right now, you're seeing a lot of wind farms go up here in central Illinois, from all the way over to Quincy, Illinois, all the way to the east side in Indiana. And we're right in a good belt when it comes to energy for wind. The problem with wind is that it is not free like you may have thought. Wind energy is going to cost 2 to 3 times more than what you're paying for energy now. Wind energy is not free. The only reason these big farms are going up, and it's the only way they can do it with big farms, is they're being subsidized with tax incentives that we're paying for. Half of the wind turbine is being paid for by tax credits. If they weren't getting half of the cost of that wind turbine, one wind turbine that you see out here to the east of us is to produce 1.2 megawatts of power, actually 1.2 megawatts of power. Okay, that wind turbine costs $2 million per megawatt. It is not cheap. There's another problem with wind, and the same problem we have with solar, only it's worse. Solar only works when the sun's shining. So there's at least a third of the day that the sun's not shining, and then we have overcast days like this, it doesn't work either. So regardless of whether we go to renewable energy or not, whether it be wind or solar, we still need our backup when it comes to our fossil fuels. So you have to have a power plant ready to go when the wind's not blowing or the sun's not shining. That is going to increase your energy bills as dramatically as well. So this wind and this sun is not free energy. The other problem we have when it comes to renewable energies, where the most of the sun is and where most of the wind is out in the plains. I just got back from North Dakota this past week, and they're starting to put up a lot of solar panels and wind turbines up there. Here's the problem. Nobody lives there. Now they got to get it to the load. The reason we're able to do it around here is because we have Chicago, we have St. Louis, we have Indianapolis, and we have transmission lines already built. The problem is not only does it cost $2 million per megawatt for a wind turbine, it costs more than that for a solar panel, by the way, but now it's going to cost another $1.1 million to $1.4 million just to build 1 mile of transmission line to get it to where it needs to go. Now think about this. Who wants the transmission lines going across their property if they're not going to use the power? So we got another problem here. So even though the states are mandating we use energy and renewable energy 20% by 2020 or 25% by 2025, it ain't going to happen, no matter what the mandate is. Because first of all, there's not enough energy out there for wind and for solar for what we're going to need. Well, we come to another problem, and the push we have right now is to reduce carbon dioxide, because there are those who believe that carbon dioxide is causing the warming of the atmosphere, which is going to cause the melting of the iceberg, which is going to cause the flooding of the coastal lands and wipe out everything as we know it today. Well, so now there's a push for natural gas. And the reason for natural gas is because it is half of the carbon dioxide emissions per million BTUs produced. But the problem is we're going to need 3 times the natural gas that we would need for coal, because there's not as much energy in natural gas as there is in coal. So the expense is going to go up. So what are we going to do? We're going to need renewables. We're going to need solar. We're going to the wind. We're going to need all the fossil fuels, and we are definitely going to need what we call the power plants that we no longer have, nuclear. And we need a lot of them, because that's the only way we're going to make it. So what we're looking at here, by the way, let me give you an example. I told you what the big wind turbine costs. Let's look at the small wind turbines that you can put on your own farm or on your own home if you got some acreage and you can put it up high enough. A simple 3 kW wind turbine is going to cost somewhere in the neighborhood of about $20,000. With that 30% tax incentive that we get from the government now till 2016, it's still going to take close to 25 years to pay for it. By that time, it won't be working. You have to get another one, start all over. Solar panels are going to take longer, take over 30 years to pay for. So again, this is not cheap energy. Wind and solar is not cheap because we need the redundancy, and it costs very much for the transmission lines, and it costs very much for the equipment itself. Put this in perspective. Nuclear power for 1 megawatt is $1.72 per megawatt. Coal is next. Coal would be $2.37 per megawatt. Natural gas is next, and that's $6.35. It's almost 3 times more costly to use natural gas to create electricity and energy than it is to use coal. So we need to use the coal. We've got plenty of it. But when I come to renewable energy, it's going to cost between $10 and $15 per megawatt. We cannot afford it. You're going to pay a lot just to try to go to renewables, and you're going to see your energy bills double and triple just because we're forcing renewables on us to do this. Do we need it? We do need renewables. We're going to need renewables, but we don't need it all right now with a mandate of 20% by 2020 or 25% by 2025. Besides, it's not going to happen. Anybody here familiar with what's going on in China? You know there's a lot of people in China? A lot of people, right? Anybody have any idea how many people there are in China? 1.4 billion. There's a little over 300 million Americans, but there's 1.4 billion Chinese. That's what happened in 2009. They just finally surpassed us in energy use. China is building, and prior to a couple of years ago, they were building 1.5 coal-fired power plants every week. We can't get one built every 10 years. They were building 1.5 every week. Now they're down to only 1 coal-fired power plant per week. And that's going to last for several years to come because they're moving almost 500 million people off the farm into cities for manufacturing. And they're going to need the energy because they didn't need it out there in the country. But now they're going to need it in the big cities that they're building. And as a result of that, they're going to be using more and more energy. Guess what? They don't build their coal-fired power plants to the same standards that we have to. So they're going to be emitting a lot of carbon dioxide and a lot of sulfur dioxide and a lot of nitrogen oxide. Not like we can't. They're just going to keep doing it, and no matter what we do, it's not going to be able to stop them. There's another country, just a little bit south of China, India. 1.6 billion people, more than China. They're becoming industrialized too. And they also want energy because it's energy which is the lifeblood of a nation. If you're going to have what we call economic growth and economic development and prosperity, you have to have energy. You know, that's why even illegal immigrants keep coming here because this is where the jobs are at. This is where they can get work. This is where they can get ahead because we have energy available, where in other countries they didn't have it. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing a big push toward more energy use. Now, we've been told by our government motors, what's the most popular car that they're promoting right now? Anybody know what it is? The Volt. Okay, it runs on electricity. Where are we going to get it? Where are we going to get that electricity if they don't let us build more power plants? The wind's not always blowing. The sun's definitely not shining at night, and we're going to plug that car in to try to charge it. We've got real issues here. So here's the question. Okay, we run up against this situation. We look at the real world. We see what the rest of the world's doing, and yet we're doing just the opposite, and it's hurting us. It's not hurting them because they aren't held to the same standards we are. So what we're looking at here is we must have somebody out there or a group of people that look at the world differently than we do as American citizens. Their worldview is totally different. So when we see this, what they don't understand is, number one, it takes time to change energy sources. It takes decades. The plans that the government have, not only are they not affordable, it's going to cost us trillions of dollars, but it can't happen. It's not going to happen in time. Okay, and really, we're making decisions based on one concern, and that's called carbon dioxide emissions. Their worldview is looking out a window, and picture it this way. They're looking out a window, and they're seeing a very small part of what's outside. So they're sitting awful far away from the window, looking out and seeing a very small universe. Therefore, they have very few things that they can blame carbon dioxide increase on. But if I sat close to the window and I got to see all of what's outside the window, I could see there was a lot of other things that might be taking place that could also be causing carbon dioxide increasing in the atmosphere. So it's a matter of our worldview. So what I'm basically saying here is that it depends on your view as far as the